Welcome into another episode of Target Score Winnipeg. I'm Joey Slattery. That is Taylor Allen. Make sure you're following us on all social media platforms. On Instagram at Target Score Pod. On YouTube at Target Score Podcast, where you'll find all of our podcasts, including this one, Target Score Winnipeg, Target Score Brampton, and Target Score Vancouver. A bit of a hometown theme this week as all of the guests are from the home markets. So that'll be a good one. So make sure you're joining Chris Wiggins and Andrew Savory in Vancouver, Matt Bonomi and myself in Brampton. I filled in for Denung Balsera, tried my absolute best. So I think, Taylor, I'm the first person to host every show that's in the Target Score network.
Put that on the resume, man.
Right? I got it.
Hosting all three shows that you basically started.
Yeah, I'm just monopolizing the whole thing. Yeah, no, but great show in Brampton. Just make sure you're following along. Have the subscriptions on. If you're liking what you're seeing, give it a like on YouTube. Subscribe. Same goes for wherever you get your podcasts for the audio version. Follow me at Joey Slattery TV, Taylor at Taylor Allen 31. And Taylor, 4-4 are the Winnipeg Sea Bears here as we record this on June 9th. Tough loss, I guess we'll say, against Montreal, but a very strong win against Ottawa on a 2-game road trip. When I say 2-game road trip, it's actually a 4-game road trip. They played their last 4 games on the road, so they've concluded their longest road trip of the season. They've played 8 games so far. Only 2 of them have been at home. They're still second in the West. Before we kind of get into the games and breaking down what we saw between Ottawa and Montreal, I'm looking at this record, and the reason why I bring this up, I'm listening to one of the analysts in Ottawa, and they're saying the key to the game is don't underestimate Winnipeg because of their record. And maybe this is just a product of, you and I, our listeners, our audience, who are paying a lot closer attention to Winnipeg. It kind of shocked me because I'm thinking, who would underestimate the Winnipeg Sea Bears, who are second in the West, that were 500 at the time, 3-3 going into Ottawa, and then they absolutely destroy the Blackjacks on the road. But to me, this 4-4 record is not a concern by any stretch, because you look at the way they're losing these games, they're all by like a possession, maybe 2 possessions. And, talking to Mike Rainbow before the road trip, asking about the level of frustration, he's like, you can't really dwell on it because you'll drive yourself nuts trying to find that one possession that would have changed the game. So, like, to me, this 4-4, as weird as it sounds, I think last year's 4-4 would have been a lot worse. This one seems very optimistic to me.
Yeah, and I mean, never mind that. Just look at the West. I mean, other than Vancouver, is there a single team that really, truly has it all figured out right now? Not so much. Last year, this West, like, everyone was going off and winning games, and it just like you couldn't afford to drop a couple. But this year, it's kind of like everyone's kind of had a bit of a slow start. I mean, Calgary at 0-7, which I'm sure we'll get more into them, obviously, considering the Sea Bears have back-to-back games against them coming up. I mean, who would have predicted the Calgary Surge? Yes, I know they had a new coach and not the entire, same roster from last year, but 0-7, the Calgary Surge. I mean, that team has always just been a model of consistency these past few years, and now not so much. And then Saskatoon, I mean, I think people kind of thought they would take a bit of a step this year, and so far they've had a bit of a slow start as well at 2-5. And Edmonton, they're kind of similar to Winnipeg at 3-4, but yeah, it's just been a weird kind of year for the West overall. So for the Sea Bears to be 4-4, I mean, can't really knock them because quite a few of the teams that they've been battling with over the years aren't really doing any better.
Well, totally. All of these teams are not at full strength yet either, right? Like, I'm pretty sure you're going to see some more signings across the league. I know there's some names coming through that, Vancouver's been hinting at. Kyle Julius has been hinting at in interviews, right? Some big names, starter material. I mean, there's always been that question mark. Is Mitch Creek coming back? He just finished his season in Romania. So, Vancouver's going to get stronger. But then in Winnipeg, Xavier Moon, right? He's still playing out in Russia with his team Zenit. They have a weird system in Russia. And I think we touched on this last episode, but he's playing in a bronze medal best of 5 series, which blows my mind. So they got eliminated in the semifinals. They're in this best of 5. The game is being played on the day we're recording. That would be game 4. If Zenit wins, the season's over. If they lose, they would have to play on Friday, which would be the 5th and deciding game. So safe to say he's not going to be here this week. And probably not next week, but we're getting into the territory that he's coming back. Isaiah Osborne has joined the team as of June 9th in his first practice. So the pieces are starting to come together here. But I think if you look at the last two games particularly, right, their worst loss of the season came to Montreal in Montreal. It was a 6-point loss, 2 possessions. That's coming off a franchise record win. They had 117 points in Ottawa against the Blackjacks. They beat them 117-88. And the next day they have to play in Montreal. So they leave after the game in Ottawa, take a 2-hour and change bus ride in the middle of the night, check into their hotel. I'm not making excuses, but don't be surprised that they lost to Montreal, even though Montreal's last in the division. It was a revenge game for Davion Warren. He was practicing with the Sea Bears on Tuesday that week. And by Friday that week, he's playing for Montreal. And, he had a great game. He scored the target score winner against his old team. And you could tell that he had a lot to prove. He had 23 points that game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, including that target score winner. As we said, he had his words afterwards where he said, basically, this means a lot. I was wearing Winnipeg across my chest just 3 days ago. And, he felt that he's more valued in Montreal and thinks he's in a better opportunity to win. So, there was a lot kind of working against Winnipeg from an emotional standpoint. And also you're playing a desperate Montreal team as well. They're now 3-5. So they would have been 2-5 at the time. So anyway, I look at the Ottawa game to me as the big one, Taylor. Ottawa and Montreal are two teams that I feel do fly under the radar. I think Montreal is better than their record. Though I know if you talk to people in Montreal, it's not believe that they're very strong. Mo Khan has talked about some of the issues, on the broadcasts, and I've talked to him a lot, and he's said he wasn't expecting them to start out of the gate very strong, and he was right. But I look at him thinking they're not so bad. Ottawa's the team I think, because they're also 4-4. And I've said this before on the podcast. I think this is a team that, if I'm in the East, I don't want to play Ottawa. They've got, between Fudge and Cleveland and, Javonte Smart, they've got a big three. They can score. They're a strong defensive team. And Cisse just joined the team too, who played with Teddy Allen with the Bluecoats in Delaware. But this is a team that is strong. And I think the way that Winnipeg, really demolished them from start to finish. 117 points on this team, only allowing 88. I think that was a statement game from Winnipeg, which really kind of negates the loss in Montreal, in my opinion.
Well, never mind Winnipeg. I think that was a statement game from today's guest, obviously Simon Hildebrandt. I mean, Joey, I don't think it's crazy to say that was probably Simon's best game ever in the CEBL.
Yeah,
and he had a bit of a slow start to the year, but he seems to be really coming on strong recently. And for a guy like Simon, I've always been saying, if he can just find, a bit more consistency as a 3-point shooter, that his game will just soar to a whole new level. And sure enough, you look at that Ottawa game, he was 3 for 4 from deep, finished with 19 points, had 7 boards. He was just all over the place doing everything for those guys, playing 30 minutes. So if this is a sign of things to come from Simon, I mean, that's a big boost to the Sea Bears. So it'll be something to follow for sure. And then just kind of jumping back to the Montreal game. I mean, this is the CEBL, man. I mean, you're only allowed so many imports. And, at the end of the day, there's going to be situations like a Davion Warren where there just isn't room for a guy, even though he's super talented and he's playing well for the Sea Bears. Sometimes it's just a guy's role changes and he's going to want out. And that's kind of what happened. And, I wasn't surprised to see, basically as soon as Winnipeg let him go, that Montreal scooped him up right away. And for him to have the game that he did against his old club, yeah, that was probably super satisfying for him. So props for him for kind of sticking it to his old club. But yeah, it's just kind of what makes this league fun. I mean, there's situations like that happen several times in a year where a guy's with one team and then the next week he's on another team and he gets that revenge game. So I'm just a fan of the league as a whole. I mean, that was just a fun game to follow and just see Davion again, sticking it to his old club.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch, a great storyline. And, even with that, I mean, talk about the injuries. Manuel Acott, was down. Believe he went to hospital after his leg injury. So not sure on the update with him, but it looks like he'll be missing some time. So Kyler Filowich was under concussion protocol. not playing in Montreal either. So other guys had to step up. And, you look at the playing time, Mason Krause came off the bench and put in 25, almost 26 minutes, right? 9 points in that one. He had a couple of offensive boards, a couple of assists on there as well. Here's an opportunity now. We're seeing guys in the depth, like a guy like Mason Krause, who's, really stepping up when needed. And he's been having a phenomenal season as well. Teddy Allen had 33 points in back-to-back nights. He had 32 the first night, 33 the second night. He's doing everything he can to try and get the win. 2 double-doubles, right? He had 10 rebounds in the second game, 12 in the first game. Simon Hildebrandt put in another 12 in that game as well. So, you're seeing different guys step up where they need to. And I think that's kind of the optimistic part for me as well in that Montreal game is you kept it close. You really gave yourself a chance to win. It's one of those games again where a couple possessions go your way. It's a different outcome. You can make the argument that this is a team that very well could be, 6-2, 7-1 right now. But they're not. They're 4-4. But I think you look at it from the perspective of I would rather have these losses now, right? These 1 possession, 2 possession losses in May against mostly really good teams too. Like, losing to Scarborough and Brampton, they were both undefeated at the time when they lost to them. So these are games where you get prepared. So going back to the Davion Warren thing you said, Davion Warren won that battle, but Winnipeg is focused on the war, right? This is a team that believes it can win a championship. I think everybody around the league considers them a contender. They've got a great roster, but it's those battles, what you learn from those battles, that are going to help you win the war overall. So as much as you're 4-4 right now, it's certainly not a panic. Like I've never been, I think, more relaxed or optimistic over a 500 record in my life. Like it's a tough schedule to start the season. They've played it extremely competitively. I think my favorite part about this team and watching this team is that competitiveness. It's just they play through the final whistle. It doesn't always go their way, but you can't knock them on effort. I can't pinpoint it to a play that someone took off or it was a mindless mistake. It's losing that offense, like, the rebound, like on the defensive end, right? Giving up those offensive rebounds late. And it's not an effort. It could be positioning. It could just be you lost the battle. There's 1 ball and there's 10 people right on the floor. So you're not going to get every single possession. But what I think I've liked most about this team is just this competitiveness. In those games that have been a slog, they go shot for shot, right? Even the games they lost, like they get hit, they throw a punch. They take a punch, they throw a punch, but they're never down on the mat until, the time is up and that target score has been hit.
So we're a third of the way through the season now. 8 games in, 4-4. So if you had to give them a school grade, A+, B+, whatever, what are you giving?
I'm going to give
third of the way through.
I'm going to give a B+. And like the reason why I don't give them an A, and I think a B+ is a little bit maybe it could be lower is what I'm getting at. Might be a little generous, but I think with the B+ is because in those losses, we still learned a lot, and we see a team that's fighting and keeping them in a position to win late. Like it's not like they're making these drastic target score comebacks and things like that. Like the games are back and forth and never really out of the way. And when they do find themselves down double digits, they've still come back to either win the game or, make it a 1 possession loss. So I think, considering they have a new head coach, they've had a tough schedule on the road, and also remember when they're on the road, they're going back and forth, right? So like they had 2 games to start that road trip, and they're back in Winnipeg for a little bit. Then they're back on the road to Ottawa. Then they're taking a bus overnight to Montreal, and then now they have a week break before they go into, the game against Calgary on Friday, which I know Mike Rainbow will love because he has time to practice. And that's his favorite thing about basketball as a coach. But that's I'm going to give him a B+ on that simply because yes, it's 4-4, but it's a very competitive 4-4. And I think it's just scratching the surface of the run they're about to go on. What about you?
I'll be slightly less generous and I'll go with a B, but I mean, I've been impressed with these guys. I think, like you said, the effort has definitely been there. Offensively, we've talked about this several times. I just like the rhythm, the style that they're playing this year, as opposed to the way they've been kind of playing the past few years defensively as well. I mean, you'd like to see them be a bit more consistent. And I mean, losing to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, the Mamba, giving them their first victory wasn't great. Losing to Montreal despite some things going against Winnipeg heading into that game wasn't great as well. But overall, and we've talked about this, a bunch already, but I think at the beginning of the year, they happily would have signed off to be 4-4 at this stage of the game, again, without Xavier Moon. So, yeah, definitely encouraging for sure. And a B plus, whatever you want to give them. I think you should be pretty happy if you're a Sea Bears fan right now.
Yeah, we have got Simon Hildebrandt coming up in just a couple minutes here. I didn't even tease that at the start of the show. I'm a ding dong sometimes.
It's a surprise. It's a surprise guest.
Surprise guest. No, we got Simon Hildebrandt coming up in just a little bit. But yeah, and for me too is it'll be interesting to see the dynamic, right? Because now we're kind of at the end of this like tenure without Xavier Moon, and Teddy has been playing really well. And I don't think, I'm not bringing this up as it's going to be a disruption, but there's definitely going to be a curve here for two guys that have never played together, that are very high level, to try and figure out, those tendencies, because these aren't run of the mill players, right? It's one of those things like, what's the tendency for the guy in the post, right? Like in terms of where does he want the ball delivered? What position are we looking at for a spot up shooter? Where does he like the ball in the pocket? Like the thing with Teddy Allen is he's so creative. He's got this ability to slow the game down. He's kind of like the Matrix, right? He's not overly fast, but it works in his favor. Like he can get down the floor quickly, but it's almost like sometimes it almost feels like he's slowing the defender down. Like he's going to the basket and he buys this extra like quarter of a second that gets him, over a defender's or under a defender's arm off the glass and things like that. So it's going to be interesting because both of these guys can create with the ball. I'm curious, like who's going to be taking the shot as the shot clock winds down or in target time. But right now, like Teddy Allen and, Sean East took a lot of the conversation early on. Jalen House, was hot out of the gate, still playing well. But, Teddy Allen, as weird as this sounds, has kind of been flying under the radar, from an MVP conversation standpoint. And I think in these last two games, back-to-back games with 30 plus points, 10 plus rebounds, player of the week, I think he's now in front of that conversation of MVP here as we hit the quarter way of the season. It's kind of hard to deny that this guy is as advertised and is exactly vintage Teddy as we know him on the court.
So league-wide, you think he's the favorite right now for MVP?
And I'm not saying a long shot favorite, but I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. I think, there's more players involved. I think it's going to change week to week. But I think in the performance that he had this week, he's put himself up there among the top. I would put him at the front runner, speaking solely from recency bias. He's been consistent. He's, facilitated guys, but he's been able to take over the game when he's needed to. And he was in this last week of CBL basketball, he's the MVP.
Yeah, no, that's a fair statement. But I think, again, it's going to really be interesting to see how his role kind of changes, if at all. I mean, I'm sure it's going to have to change when Xavier Moon gets here. I mean, that's, again, the billion-dollar question that we're all kind of itching to see and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, the way Teddy's been playing this year, I think you have to give that signing an A+ right now. I think a lot of people were kind of iffy on it and whatever, or a bit kind of like, okay, well, this could either go one of two ways. But no, like it's been Mike Rainbow's gotten the best out of Teddy, and it's never mind just as a basketball wise, he seems to be, taking pride in being the leader of this group as well, and really kind of being excited when a kind of a guy who isn't as well known obviously has a big game or big moment or whatever. So yeah, I mean, Ted, what a story that would be, Joey. Let's just take a step back. What a story that would be, just considering Teddy was MVP with this team, became the face of the team, kind of the face of the league, honestly, in that, during his heyday with Winnipeg, and then ended the way it ended, and then if he comes back this year and wins MVP again, that would be one of the best stories probably in league history.
I agree. It'd be this weird other thing too, where it's like not only are you winning another MVP on putting the cherry on top, but you're doing it with the guy who has the most MVPs in league history, who has the trophy, at least designed after him with the big X, and that's Xavier Moon. But I think the other thing is I don't think that's on his radar as much, right? Like, Teddy's still Teddy, like he's still going to get his buckets, and, he wants it to be reflected, and, whatever the case may be. But you listen to this guy in interviews and things like that. There's a real emphasis on team. That this isn't the Teddy show, and he's really steering himself clear of that narrative. Like, he's made it clear that this isn't about Teddy Allen and the Sea Bears. It's about the Sea Bears with Teddy Allen, if that makes sense. I've really, really liked the way he's kind of adapted his game to play under Rainbow, and how, I guess, excited he is to play in this like style that he's not really played a lot of. That grind and grit style, as he's talked about. And, he said, like, if it gives me an opportunity to win, I'm all in. And like I said, when you're 4-4 and you've had, some tough losses along that stretch, Teddy seems optimistic. And to me, that's a great measuring stick. If Teddy is playing well and is content and is not panicking, there's probably good reason for that. Like, he's seeing things beyond the record, which is, again, like, it's just at this point 2 numbers, and you're second in the division, so it's not costing you anything to lose these games right now. So, but I think Teddy's game this year has been phenomenal. His defense has been great. The scoring's going to come, and we know that he's Teddy Buckets. But I think that the negative connotation of Teddy Buckets is that you assume he's bad at defense. You assume he's not passing the ball. You assume he's not getting rebounds, and he's doing all of that. I think he's been a great tone setter for this team. It seems like everybody's getting along. Him and Jeremiah Tillman now have that, some great chemistry there as well. He's played with Trey McGowan's. They've got some chemistry. It's going to be interesting to see the addition of Xavier Moon, because sure, we talk a lot about how are they going to mesh the learning period? Can they both coexist? But there's the other side of this of, holy cow, is there a lot of depth, right? And now you cannot just guard. Even to this point, you can't just guard Teddy. There's a lot of weapons on Winnipeg compared to his first go around here in Winnipeg. And now there's only going to be more. And you don't have to put him out there for 30 minutes a game, 32, 35 minutes a game. Now you could rest him as the game goes on, and we get more into the grind of the season, because there's more than enough options and looks to play all these different teams. So there is that aspect of, I don't think it's that optimistic to think that this could all work out. It was different under Mike Taylor, when they brought in Justin Wright Foreman, which we never really got to see. But I remember at the time, like, we were all kind of like, I think you're pulling the wool over our eyes a little bit with this, because Teddy Allen and Justin Wright Foreman are 2 very ball dominant, create by themselves. Like, the difference with Xavier Moon is he's seen it all. He is a great facilitator. He can score, but he doesn't need to be the leading scorer. He can affect the game in so many levels. And if you haven't seen him, follow him on Instagram. Go look at some of the highlights from his Russian basketball, season that just passed. He's coming off an injury. He looks fine. I think he's going to complement Teddy Allen. It's going to take pressure off Teddy, and I think you might actually see more games where Teddy is going to have those 30-point, 40-point. And I said at the start of the year, those games are going to come. They're here now, right? He's in his rhythm. He's got his, the chemistry with the team. I would be shocked if there's a negative dip in his numbers, in the sense that his numbers drop, but so do the wins. I think if his numbers are coming down a little bit, it's only because he's finding more opportunities for teammates. And I think he and the rest of the team are going to be happy with that, because it probably means they're going on a pretty good run.
Justin Wright Foreman. If there was a stat that showed how much bad body language a guy displayed in a game on average, he would have led the league in points per game. He also would have led the league in that. That guy just did not have good body language and did not seem like I'm just being honest, Joey. He did not seem like a great teammate at times. But anyways, Joey, what are we doing here? How are we 25 minutes into this, and we haven't talked about really the biggest news of all, the Tundra Buggy? Oh, baby. We got to dive into this, Joey. What are we doing? Forget about the basketball. This is a big deal.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard, the Winnipeg Sea Bears now have a new team bus. It's a Tundra Buggy. Could you imagine? Can you actually imagine? That should be the way they roll in. No more starting lineups. No more running through the tunnel. You just drive the Tundra Buggy to center floor, and the whole team comes out, like the Monstars, but Michael Jordan being delivered from the spaceship. They should do this on Space Jam night. We don't have a spaceship, but we have the Tundra Buggy come out, and they come out to, smoke, maybe some of the Goldberg fireworks sparkle things, right? I think this is the new way to introduce the team. No more starting lineups, just here are your Winnipeg Sea Bears, and they all come out of the Tundra buggy and play the game. I don't think there'd be anything more intimidating than that.
You had me at the Goldberg sparkle thingies. I mean, that alone, forget about the buggy. They just need that. That would be awesome. Have security guards, knock on the locker room door, then escort them down to the court, Goldberg style. Hell yeah. Sign me up for that. That would be wicked. But
it is cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, they hyped up this announcement quite a bit. It kind of made you think they were signing LeBron James or something. But I mean, this thing is cool, and I'm excited to see it in action on Friday and stuff. And I'm sure fans will light up when they see it too. But yeah, when they kind of were hinting at we're making this big announcement last Saturday, and come out and we'll, whatever, it's kind of like my mind was racing. You could have gave me 10 billion guesses. I don't think I would have came up with Tundra buggy as one of them. But whatever, yeah. It's something different, and I think anytime a team tries something different to get people talking and excited, I think that's cool, because I think lots of pro sports teams just kind of try out the same things over and over again. So yeah, I don't know, will this make a difference or not? I have no idea, but it sounds like there's some cool initiatives behind it as well. So yeah, we'll see it on Friday. I think it might be kind of cool.
I think the cool thing is like, I don't know if it's as like important to the average Winnipegger as Manitobans in the north, right? If you're coming up from Churchill, you're in Winnipeg, you go to the game. It's kind of, as someone who comes from a small town, when your city is represented, there's a level of excitement that I don't think people from big cities like fully understand. So I think there is a level of pride there, from the people like of the north that are coming up for games and things like that. It is a connection. I mean, it's a great way, other than having an actual polar bear in an aquarium on the floor, to tie the North, which is really inspired the whole brand, right? The Sea Bears. But beyond that, I think it's a good representation of the province. But I think more than that, beyond the hype, so to speak, was the initiatives behind it. I really commend the Sea Bears for having the Sea Bears Foundation and what they're doing there with trying to get youth connected to basketball and make a change through the sport, and also just the initiatives of trying to expand beyond Winnipeg and giving kids in Manitoba an opportunity to get top level coaching and have basketball programming in these areas where it's a lot tougher to get it. So I commend them for it. I think there's more. I think it's more of symbolic. The size of the Tundra buggy is more symbolic of the impact that this can have on northern Manitoba, particularly as the Sea Bears do serve as the team for Manitoba. So I think what I was most impressed with was like, yeah, it's really cool and it's going to look awesome in the South Pole. But I think more so than that is the symbolism behind it of just what the Sea Bears culture is. It's fun, it's a party, it's big, but it's all inclusive for Manitobans. East to west, north to south. And I think they've done a good job in that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they kind of work that partnership into places like Churchill, where kids are going to get an opportunity to, meet and play or work with some of these players and coaches down the road.
I have no idea how they'd even be able to make it work logistically, or where there would even be a venue to play or whatever. But it would be so cool one day if they could somehow make it work where they could play a game in Churchill, or at least somewhere up north, kind of close to Churchill.
Well, listen,
Churchill's a very, very, very hard place to get to, even from Winnipeg. You can't drive up to Churchill. But if there's some way they could ever pull that off, I don't know, again, when they would do it, who they'd fly into play, or who would even be on that trip, or again, where, or anything. I don't know anything about anything, basically.
Okay, so we've opened this can of worms.
It would be cool if they could somehow pull that off.
So this is going to add another 5 minutes in our podcast at the very least, but because I don't think we've touched on last week, I don't know if the announcement would have been made, but like the whole Whitehorse game is super cool. The first ever game to be played in the territories between the Calgary Surge and the Saskatoon Mamba. I think that's a massive coup for the league. Playing in like uncharted territory, quite literally, when it comes to basketball. It connects the country to coast to coast to coast. I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's of big cultural significance just from a Basketball Canada standpoint, and sports in general, and the connectivity of it all in our country. Now, that said, if it can happen there, it can happen in Churchill. The other thing I would look at is there a possibility that you do something crazy, like, where you're not as much worried about attendance, because the people that would be there would likely just be people from Churchill in that area. Maybe some people would fly in or take the train, whatever. But do you do something outdoors by the bay? Right? Like we've seen like some cool venues that have happened, for college basketball and like out of the box, outside the box ideas of where to play a basketball game. Montreal's already had an outdoor game. I know it didn't end that well with the rain, but they had it at the tennis stadium that looked really cool. Is there a world where you see the Sea Bears have a game or a preseason game in Churchill against, say, Saskatoon, where they just do something completely outside of the box and bring the game to Churchill? I think that'd be kind of cool too.
But if the weather in Winnipeg is a disaster in May, I could only imagine what the weather in
I feel
Churchill
like you got to
would
do it
be
late
in May.
season. I feel like if you're going to do it,
Yeah.
it'd have to be, it wouldn't be preseason. You're right. That's a good call. It wouldn't be preseason. What if you did exhibition postseason too, right? Where if you had some guys that were staying back, and I don't know, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. This is, to be clear, this is us purely speculating. Like nothing that we know of is in the works at this point. But it would be kind of fun to see if there was a way to make that work. And I've always said, like, what if they had a preseason game in Brandon, like or Steinbach? Like we've had so many great facilities. I don't know if they would be great for a regular season game, but to bring it across Manitoba and see some of these facilities and allow people that might not make the trip into Winnipeg to see it at home, which might actually lure them to make those trips to Winnipeg and plan it around a Sea Bears game. But a game in Churchill, though, would be pretty darn cool.
This is why we don't work in marketing, Joey, because we don't know how things work or how you pull
We don't
these
know how
things
a
off.
lot of things work. We can make the argument we don't know how basketball works.
That is very true. I would definitely argue that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's many players and coaches that have listened to this that think just that. But you're stuck with us. All right. Had a chance to talk with Simon Hildebrandt, as now we are getting into the half an hour territory. People have been patiently waiting, Taylor, for the hometown boy, the golden boy, Simon Hildebrandt. I had a great conversation with him. Let's tune into it now. This is my conversation with Simon Hildebrandt. Simon, thank you as always for taking the time here to join us on Target Score Winnipeg.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be on.
So let's go over the first things first. I mean, for some people, probably haven't had a good chance to hear from you in length, but I know you've been excited to be back in Winnipeg. But now you've been here for a little while. It had been a 2-year or a 1-season hiatus, I should say, between your 2 years in the NCAA. What's it been like to be back playing in the CEBL, particularly here in Winnipeg?
Oh, I mean, it's always good to be home. I love Winnipeg. I got all my friends and family here. So it's definitely nice to be home, and especially playing, back in front of the Seabears fans. Like, there's nothing like it.
And you are now starting your true pro career. Congratulations. You just signed your first pro contract for the winter season over in Germany. Tell us a little bit about that. What are you most looking forward to there? Where are you headed?
Yeah, I'm going to Bayreuth. It's called in the Pro A league in Germany, which is the second division. I'm really excited. I think ever since I was, young and in high school and felt like I had these professional basketball aspirations, uh, Europe's always been a goal of mine, and Germany specifically because I have a lot of family there. So it'll be nice to be able to go there, hopefully see some family and kind of fulfill that next step of my goals.
How do you pronounce the city again?
Bayreuth.
Good thing I let you say it because I
Yeah.
was not. I was going to say it. That's awesome. So, looking at the pro journey and how you got here, you look back at the decision that you had to make. Would have been like 2-3 years ago now. After 2 seasons here in Manitoba, playing at home, you were building a nice career here, and then you go off to High Point University. When you look back at that decision, like how impactful was it, and how did it shape the path to where you're on now?
Yeah, I just remember that was one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make. Obviously, I had everything going for me. Like you said, I was building a pretty successful career with the Bisons. I was able to play in the CBL in the summers, and things were going well. But I kind of felt like, I needed to make myself uncomfortable and push myself to to try to challenge myself to play at that next level. And since I was a kid, like again, I always wanted to play Division One. Is a big goal of mine. And so when the opportunity came, I I wanted to make sure that it checked all my boxes, right? Like from an education standpoint, I wanted to be good. I wanted to have a role. I wanted to have a chance to play in March Madness. And it kind of worked out with everything High Point had to offer. And I think during those 2 years that I was gone, yeah, like I missed being home for sure. But I think I met so many such amazing people in my 2 years in the U.S. So many great connections, so many great teammates, and just having all these different coaches, show you one or two little tricks here and in this part of the game, and this part of the game, and just being able to be coached by so many different great coaches, having so many great teammates, so many great connections, memories, experiences. I think that just shapes me as a person and as a basketball player. So yeah, I don't regret anything. I had a great 2 year run, and I'm happy to be back.
Okay, so and we'll get into the March Madness for sure because you haven't been on this podcast since that happened, I don't believe. But I want to ask about High Point because you went there. I think for a lot of people, when you went to High Point, that was the first time, at least in this area, like Winnipeg, Manitoba basketball fans were hearing of High Point University, and you do go to the to March Madness that year. But the next year they go back to March Madness. And it seemed like that was the year that all the viral videos went out about their campus lifestyle and just how unique it is there. How unique
hmm
was it being at High Point University, particularly when you look at where you were coming from at the University of Manitoba?
Yeah, it's really one of a kind. Like there's nothing like it in college anywhere in the world. It's a resort. They do such a good job of making that campus like everything it is, and making it for the students. Like it's everything you see. For not all of it's real. There's a couple of people that over exaggerate a few things, but they're not far off. It's such a beautiful place. I love my time there. I have nothing but great things to say about High Point.
What was the most exaggerated fact or subject that was brought up? Was there anything that you saw like on social media? You're like, that's not accurate.
Yeah, I would. So there's two things that come to mind right away. We have these 5-star restaurants on campus. There's three of them, and they're a part of your meal plan. And the whole point of these restaurants is to teach the students how to dine properly, like the proper etiquette for a business meal, right? So there's like a very very strict dress code. It's like once you finish ordering, you have to put your menu down and put your like everything, like which fork, which knife to you, all everything is like teaching you proper business etiquette. Uh, and you can only go once a week. You have to like book 2 weeks in advance to make a reservation. Uh, like it's yeah, and I found it pretty useful too. Obviously, it's great food, and well, I kept seeing all this stuff on social media. It's like, oh yeah, you can just go eat at this 5-star steakhouse every night, blah blah. Like it's not. It's once a week. You have to really be on it to book your reservation. It's very strict dress code, and there's a whole purpose behind it too, which I found very useful. And the second thing I saw was people talking about how there's like an ice cream truck that goes around campus, so you can stop between classes to get ice cream. Like, man, I never had like I wasn't there when I was there. Like, I don't know where people are getting this from. But there's like a few little things like that that were kind of like, I mean, I went there and I didn't have it, so it's probably not there. But a lot of this crazy stuff, like a ton of swimming pools, ton of our arenas, like state of the art. All this stuff was pretty crazy. So,
The arena looked beautiful, like even just seeing the team account, and I think you had shared some stuff too. Like that arena looked phenomenal. I'm thinking,
yeah.
how cool would it be to have something like that, in this area for sure. But in that, on that journey too, a bit of I would imagine it was unexpected. Your head coach that recruited you there, after the first year ends up going, I believe, to Creighton. That you end up in the transfer portal. How was that experience? Going from because you look at Kirby Shep at Manitoba, he's been there for close to 2 decades now, so it's kind of what to expect year after year. But then you go to a new situation in the United States, NCAA, and then your coach announces that he's leaving. How did you go about that process of just digesting the fact that coach was gone and then making the choice of whether to stay after going to March Madness or having to find another school, which eventually
Yeah,
was Washington State?
Yeah, it was tough. Coach Huss, who was my coach at the time, recruited me. I really liked playing for him. Like I wanted to come back and keep playing for him. And he talked to our team when the time came that he announced that he was leaving, and he said that was one of the hardest decisions that he had to make. a Creighton alum, and he came from Creighton before he went to High Point, and then ended up going back. And he just said he didn't want to leave, and they were on him and on him and on him, and he finally just felt like it reached a point where he was like, "This is just something I got to do." So in regards to the transfer portal, I had a lot of meetings with like all my coaches, my agent, and all this stuff, and we kind of felt like I was like, as a collective, like all of us felt like the best thing for me going forward was to hit the transfer portal. It was sad, I made a lot of really close friends at High Point and had a lot of great experiences. Obviously, like that campus is like a place that makes you want to stay there for a while. But yeah, the transfer portal and my meetings with the Washington State coaching staff, we clicked right away. Just the way they presented how they use guys like me and their system, and their coaches are just such great people. And they made a very strong emphasis on recruiting good people and good basketball players. And it was definitely a fun year.
And now fast forward. Well, before we get into to being back on the Sea Bears, and you and I have talked about this, I know, but the interesting part, or what did you find most interesting about having a year off in the summer after playing 2 years with the Sea Bears and going to a game as a fan?
Yeah, I mean, having the summer off is not how I would put it, because off from the Sea Bears, but yeah, I was still at school working on them, practicing every day. I had a couple of weeks in May where I was home, and maybe a week in August or something like that. But yeah, it was definitely the first half of the first game I went to. I was like, man, like this is pretty cool. Like I actually be able to enjoy like the basketball and enjoy it as a fan. And then once we hit that like halftime, second half starts and target score, it's like, man, I just want to be out there and I try to help this team get a win. So it's definitely I'm definitely excited to be back on the floor than in the stands this year.
So then you come back to the Sea Bears, but a lot has changed, but also like it's kind of familiar, I guess, right? You come back and, Teddy Allen is back, which, for your first 2 years, well, most of the first 2 years, everything was kind of surrounded around Teddy, right? It revolved around Teddy in terms of the marketing and, his impact that he had on the community on the floor. But Mike Taylor's no longer here. I know you know Mike Rainbow really well, but most of your time, at least in recent history, has been playing against him, when you were with Manitoba. But what has it been like coming back to the Sea Bears? Like, what are some of the changes that you've noticed maybe from the first time around? And what have some of the similarities been that, it kind of feels like, nothing has changed in some ways?
Yeah, obviously, I spent a lot of time playing against Coach Rainbow. But he recruited me too before I was going to college, and he was an assistant coach with the Sea Bears too. So I've kind of been around him enough. I think we'd have definitely more of a defensive mindset this year. We spend a lot more time focusing on defensive stuff and practices. That's probably been the biggest difference. Mike Taylor's a very offensively minded coach, and Coach Rainbow focuses definitely more on defense. So I'd say that was one of the biggest changes. And similarities is still just like, I think at the end of the day, like it's basketball. Like you're still running, similar actions. You're still doing this the same. You're still playing the same arena. A lot of these guys I've played with before, like someone like Mason's a guy I've played with throughout my college, and he was with the Sea Bears like one of the years I was there, and now we're sharing the court again. So, yeah, I would say that's it's nice to have some familiar faces back too.
Okay, and we will get to Mason. But with Mike Rainbow, in terms of, you just brought up the defensive part, how does this help in your own development? Because as much as you're playing pro, you're still always developing, right? And you're trying to progress to the next phase. But what is it about, that you like most about this style that you feel is going to take you to the next level? Like, do you enjoy the defensive focus of this team? And have you found a niche in there that or maybe not a niche, but are you finding anything that you enjoy there that might have caught you by surprise in terms of just what you've been able to learn?
Yeah, I definitely see myself as a player who's more offensively than defensively. And I think that having the opportunity to play for Coach Rainbow this summer is huge for my development, because he's really pushing me to be a better rebounder, be a better defender, and do all these little things, which is somewhere where I had a lot of room to grow. And he's hard on me, and he's really pushing me, which is something that I think I need this summer. So I think playing for him this summer, I'm going to see huge growth, especially like I feel like I've already seen it this last month, and I think I'm going to continue to see it the next couple months, because he's been hard on me. He's been pushing me to be better. I think having someone like that who cares about you as a person and cares about you as a player and your development is always a great situation to be in.
How did let's turn back because of the development with your NCAA experience, but particularly going to March Madness. What was that experience like with High Point? Going to the tournament and what did you learn from that experience? Because I'm sure it was unlike anything you'd experienced in your basketball career to that point.
Yeah, like playing in that tournament is like every little kid's dream who's picked up a basketball. Like it was something that I've wanted to do since I was 8, 9 years old and watching it on TV every March. So getting to play in it was just that's probably got to be the best basketball experience I've had in my life. I had like 20 plus family and friends make the trip down to Rhode Island to watch me play. So it was such an unbelievable time. And the takeaway from it was as amazing as it went by like this. You know, we got there practice, we played, and boom, we were done. And so I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound cliche, but like just don't take any moment for granted, right? Like after the game, we lost a close one to Purdue. Everybody's thinking, man, like if I only could have done this one thing different, if I could have done this one thing different. Oh, if maybe it even goes back to last summer. Oh, if I would have just maybe stayed after practice and shot a little bit more every day, maybe I would have hit this shot. And you kind of just think like, oh, it's over, like
Yeah.
done like that.
Could drive
And
you nuts.
fortunately, yeah, like fortunately for me, I had another year and I could go try to do something else with it. But like, man, like that's your last basketball experience. Like you just all these thoughts are going in your head. Like, man, like I wish I could have done more to help us stay in this moment.
Yeah.
So I would say, I mean, it's hard to put that into how I feel. But yeah, to try to take try not to take moments for granted and try to put everything you can into the game and it'll reward you.
One of the cool things with that experience too, at least from a Manitoba perspective, is that was the first time that we had two Manitobans in the tournament because you and Kyler were playing that year. He was playing with Wofford while you were playing with High Point. And I remember interviewing both of you, and Kyler was saying that you guys had been in touch, but like you guys hadn't really played together or anything to that point, other than maybe some provincial stuff. But you go through it with not directly with, but you kind of have the same experience at the same time as Kyler. And now you guys find yourself on the same team. He played with the Sea Bears last year, but you were in the summer between your NCAA seasons. What's it been like to share the floor with him at home? And have you guys talked about that experience at all?
Yeah, like even though I've never like directly played with Kyler, like I've obviously known who he was growing up. He was like such an amazing high school basketball player at Vincent Massey. So I knew who he was, and we were like, even though we had never like played together. And yeah, we talked a little bit last year about the cool opportunities that we had in front of us. Being able to play in March and now, getting to play with him finally. We've gotten pretty close this summer. He's just like a great guy, and just I've been able to pick his brain a little bit about his first year in Europe, like how his experience was, and all things like that. So I think it's been good to play with him. So yeah, he's a guy who I've just known and looked up to a little bit, throughout his high school career. And he's one of those guys who played high school in Winnipeg and then went to prep school in Toronto for a year and then went Division One. So I've been kind of trying to follow his trajectory in the last couple of years.
Well, and we can't not talk about Mason Krause, another Manitoban that you're playing with on this team. But it's interesting with Mason because you guys, your first 2 years of university basketball, you played with Mason. You guys had set records at the University of Manitoba, and he went on to, continue that. And, I think he leads all time in steals for the program. Great defender. But what's this been like from a personal level for you, being able to share the floor with Mason again, considering that, you did share it with him and then probably looked like for a while that might be it. You guys had this great 2 years and, it was something that we'll talk about in Manitoba basketball lore, so to speak. But getting this opportunity to play with him again, but not only professionally at home.
Yeah, I mean Mason is definitely one of my closest friends, and I mean, like you said, we had such a good 2 years together. Like obviously on the court, we played well together, but just off the court, like I think we mesh as people super well. So yeah, getting the chance to play with him and just watch him grow as a player. Obviously, I've been watching the Bisons play the last couple of years from afar. But it's definitely cool to see how far he's grown as a player and see him step up and not only just play at the CEBL level, but be like great at the CEBL level. You know, like that first game, he had double digits and hit the target score winner. And then this road trip, he was great for us. You know, he had a huge game against Montreal, and that's just offensively, and that doesn't even account like what he does on the defensive end of the floor. So he's a guy who, like, he's just such a great player, and he makes everybody around him better. And I'm definitely happy to be sharing the floor with him again. You know, it's been a while, and definitely happy to be back playing with him.
What about beyond the floor? I mean, you get to go on road trips again. Like how has it kind of rekindled that relationship, if you will, now that you're spending more time together?
Yeah, like me and him at U of M were always very close. Like we were pretty good friends in the row. We were always hanging out, doing stuff. Even like outside of basketball, with the Bisons, we would like go to eat or go to do this or. And so now, yeah, being off the court, being on the road, like often you're not like going out doing all this stuff like you're trying to prepare for a game, but maybe it's like, hey, let's go get something to eat or let's go do this and just like talking hoops, talking basketball all the time with him and talking about pro experiences and this team here and this guy here and it's been fun to rekindle that as well.
Does your perspective change a little bit, getting this so-called second opportunity, but also being able to see your careers progress together at the pro realm? Like, how has it changed maybe from your time? And you touched a little bit on like what you do off the court, but like, as you kind of look at it, knowing now that, as you said, not taking things for granted, has there been like a change of perspective in terms of, what this relationship means to you guys as you're playing professionally at home?
I don't know if I'd say that. I think when we were both at U of M, we both expressed how we wanted to play professional basketball, and then Germany was a good spot for both of us because of our citizenship and passports. And so it's kind of cool to see how we did take different paths a little bit, but we both ended up in the same spot, and it both worked. And I'm happy that we've both made it as far as we did, and excited to be sharing the floor with him again and play against him again next year. So.
Before we get into target time, just taking a look at the season, the way it's going. So, we're recording this on June 9th. So you're 4-4 at this point with the Sea Bears. This season has been, it's funny because you're 4-4, but it doesn't feel, at least from the outside perspective, all of the games have been close. Like even the games that you've lost, and you're not losing to, like, okay, so you lose to Montreal, they're last in the East. I think Montreal is a team that is like stronger than their record would suggest. The East seems strong this year. But when you take a look at how the season's going, what's the morale been like, just kind of, with the wins that you have been able to pull off, but even those losses, like, one possession losses against teams at the time that were undefeated. How have you felt about this season, through the first, we'll say, quarter way through this season with this team? Like, how are you feeling about this team moving forward the rest of the way?
Yeah, I feel really good. Obviously, we've had a lot of adversity to start the year. Like we've been, I think what 6 of our first 8 games have been on the road. We're still missing like Xavier Moon. We're still missing Isaiah Osborne. Like Emmanuel Aycock goes down with an injury. Kyler goes down with an injury. Like we've dealt with some adversity and we found a way to be 500. And I think we could easily argue that we could be 6-2 or 7-1. Like you said, none of these games have been like, you know what, like we just didn't have it today. Like we've been competitive every game, and we feel like all these close games are like, man, like that's one we could have won, or that's one we should have won. Like we're right there, and so all these things I feel like have kind of been against us, and we've found a way to be 4-4, which like we can be happy with. But it's hopefully it doesn't come back to bite us later, and we think, oh man, all these one possession games, like we're so close from getting an extra bye, or so close from getting this playoff game at home. So I think we're working to get healthy and we're working to get full strength. But it's been a really good start to the year for us, I think. I think we're playing well as a team. I think just the more we play and the more we practice together, the stronger we're going to become as a team. And hopefully some of these one-possession games can turn our way with the Seabears fans behind us at home and us with another week of practice under our belts.
Yeah, and as the old adage goes, right, if you're going to lose a one-possession game, you might as well lose them in May and June as opposed to August, because a loss of one possession would be the end of your season come that time. But no, it's been fun so far. I know you guys are looking forward to being home, and that'll happen Calgary in town on Friday. So, because it's been a while since you played at Canada Life Center, so I think the fans are as equally as excited to be back. That all said, are you ready for target time?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. A reminder: target time is the slowest form of rapid fire questioning you will ever experience. All right, so we talked about a lot of things this show, Simon. I'm going to go back to High Point at this for my first question. You were talking about the proper food etiquette. What is the most overlooked food etiquette that you've learned that people need to know?
Ooh, that's a good one. I want to say the dress code. I feel people know that though, but they still make. Let me say, I think one of the interesting ones I learned is that when you're finished ordering, you're supposed to close your menu and put it on the side of the table, and that signifies to the server that you're ready to order.
Okay,
that's one I didn't know when I got there.
Okay, it's funny you say that too with the like proper dress. I think we get away with it a lot in Winnipeg, and I notice it when I leave Winnipeg. And this is what I love about Winnipeg is you can go to like a nicer place and dress like a little more casual, if you will. But like I remember one time, my wife and I were going to we were driving through Calgary. We met up with some of her work friends in Calgary, and we went out for lunch. And we were dressed ready for the mountains, and everybody else was dressed in suits. And I was like, man, it was like Joey's or something. I'm thinking like, I don't think you would see this many suits at 1:00 on Wednesday in Winnipeg. But that's great. Okay, so moving on. What was your favorite part about playing in the U.S. that's not basketball related? What was your favorite part of the U.S. experience and living there and going to college there?
I will say, I have two answers for you, sort of.
Love it.
The first, if I'm allowed to say, is I don't know if you want to count this as basketball related, but just like the people. I met so many such amazing people and experiences that I've had. Just like being in North Carolina, like I met so many people, got to go around a little bit, got to go to the coast. And the second one, not basketball related, would be like at Washington State. Pullman, Washington is a college town. Like the population's under 30,000 people. The football stadium holds like 32,000 people, and people come in from all over Washington to watch these games and the tailgate, and it's like everything is the Cougs. I feel like for me growing up, that was like something that you saw in movies, like, oh, it's a college town, blah blah, and just really experience there where it's like, man, like these people will do anything for the Cougs. People will travel 3-4 hours, take days off of work just to come to a sporting event. Like that was so cool to me to see, like the commitment to the teams. It was definitely really cool for me to see.
That's awesome. This is a very CEBL question coming at you.
Okay.
But we all know, as we are in target time right now, that target score time is very unique in basketball. We've grown very accustomed to it here in Canada now that the CEBL has been around for 8 years and been here for 4 in Winnipeg. But what has the target score experience done for you from a benefit standpoint in your development?
To benefit my development.
Because I always look at it, and I've made this argument that I'm like, I wouldn't mind if other aspects of Canadian basketball adopted this, kind of like football does with the Canadian Football League. They play by CFL rules. But, I look at the one thing about target score time is you can't dribble out the clock, and you have to play until the end, right? So you always put yourself in a situation where you have to win the game. It's like, it's always crunch time. There's no garbage time. There's crunch time in every game. So I always thought from a development standpoint, like, does that help a player, develop the quote clutch aspect of their game, being more used to being in that situation? Is there anything like that, or maybe something totally off the rails that I would never think about that's benefited your development?
I think just being able to understand and play through that pressure at the end. It's funny because every single time target score comes, doesn't matter who you are as a player. Like when you start getting to the end, like everybody's thinking like, man, like, what if I hit the game winner? What if I hit that final shot? And I think the teams that are successful at it know how to play through that as a team. It's like, hey, understanding that I have this like okay look right now, but I can be the star, I can win it. But, you know, this guy's more open over here, or, you know, this guy's got it going, we got to get him the ball here, and things like that. And just the more successful teams are the teams that are able to play through that, you know, individualness that kind of starts to creep in when you get in that target score time. So I think playing through that, you kind of understand, you know, how to be a good team under pressure, I would say.
I like that answer. Okay. Few more here, because normally we'd have two people asking questions. So I'm going to ask three more questions. First one, going to Germany. What are you most excited about the German basketball experience?
I got some family out there. It'd be fun to see them. You know, I feel like my goal since I was playing in high school has always been to play in Europe. So I'm excited to get out there and just see the fans. Like, you know, every time you see European soccer fans, European basketball fans, like it's not the same as North America. Just like the singing, the chanting, the clapping, like the commitment is something that I'm really excited to play in front of.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. I go down rabbit holes and like all those videos of like Greece and Serbia and things like that. No, it'll be fun. Okay, so now here you guys are, for whatever reason, bus driver. You're stuck in, I'll say Montreal, because I feel like there's no Quebecers on the team that I can think of off the top of my head. So bus driver's not there. You guys have to get to a game within 30 minutes. Who is going to take that bus and be able to get you navigate there without GPS?
In a different city?
Yeah. Just who do you trust to take the wheel and say you're going to get us there, even though none of us know what we're doing?
Oh, man. I would say probably a Canadian guy.
Fair.
That's a tough one. Maybe like myself or like Kyler.
Who would be the most poised? I guess would be
Nate Balamu is another one who would be up there.
Nate Balamu, he's a grinder guy. I feel like he would just be like, I got to do this for the team, and he would just figure it out.
Yeah. I would say those are my three.
Okay. I'm gonna give the edge to Balamu. I'm gonna give him that.
Okay,
I feel like that.
I like that.
Okay, so we'll say Nate Balamu. And my last question: we only know you and Mason as teammates. But if you guys are going 1v1 to whatever, going for a title, no more target score, it's a 1v1 best of 5. Or we'll go up to 7. Up to 7. Who's going to win that 1v1 matchup?
That's the stuff. I think it'll depend a lot on the rules. If you get like you know, if it's a dribble count or unlimited dribbles, or if it's, you know, you make
we'll go
it
10-second shot clock.
10-second shot clock. I don't know. I think we may have played one-on-one a couple times with the Bisons, but it's definitely been a while. I would say it's definitely going to 7 or 5 or to the end. Like it would be competitive for sure. But I don't know. It'd be close. I'll give myself the edge, but it's definitely going to be a tight one.
You know, that was a polite way of you just saying, it's going to be me, but I'm going to try and extend the runway here so Mason's not mad at me when he listens to this. But you guys have two very contrasting styles, so it'd be a very interesting 1v1, right?
It's like the rules depend. You know, am I allowed to just try to drive and post up the whole time, or if it's you know, unlimited dribbles, he might be able to get by me more than enough on the perimeter. Or if it's make it take it, if I just start getting it down low, I don't know. So there's a lot of different ways you could look at it that could, I think, have an effect on the results. But
you'd have to bait them into your game, as they say, right?
Yeah.
It's like who could bait who into their game would probably be the winner. All right, Simon, that does it for Target Time. I just want to say thanks again for making the time. I know it's always busy during the CBL season, but we always appreciate you coming on here. And of course, the fans and our viewers and listeners do too. As a fan favorite Winnipegger, everybody's happy to have you back, and best of luck the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Great conversation as always with Simon Hildebrandt. Just a great journey that, this guy's taken, coming out of Winnipeg, starting in Manitoba, being part of March Madness, playing at a school like Washington State, and to see him now have a pro career that's taking off beyond Winnipeg. He'll be playing in Germany next year at the Pro A level, which is second division in Germany. Always great to have Simon on the show, and he's having a heck of a year here so far with the Sea Bears, but his true pro career is now here, Taylor. He's a true pro, no more college for Simon Hildebrandt.
Yeah, and Simon and company are going to have a pretty fun kind of test coming up here this week, Joey, obviously with a back-to-back against the Calgary Surge. First game Friday, hosting the Calgary here at home. And kind of interesting, Joey, the Surge, like we were kind of talking about earlier, we've never seen them have this struggles like this before in their franchise history. Now here at 0-7, and they have let go of their coach, Perry Huang, who's a guy who really, the reason why they hired this guy is because, he has quite the resume. He's won WNBA championship. He's won a G League title. Has an impressive resume, but for whatever reason, clearly he was not working out so hot this year. So they let go of him. And, Joey, in pro sports, you often see when a team gets rid of a coach, that the team kind of sometimes goes on a heater after that. So, the Sea Bears, they might be licking their chops at the idea of playing a winless Calgary team, but they should have learned from the Saskatchewan experience that playing a winless team doesn't mean anything. And B, like I said, Calgary might be playing with some extra fire on Friday. So I think Friday is going to be a fun one for sure.
Well, message sent from general manager Shane James that, it's now or never. They're 0-7. This is recorded June 9th, so they haven't announced a replacement, and they have one game on Wednesday against Saskatoon. So after this podcast comes out, this game will be on tonight, I guess, if you're listening to it on Wednesday or watching this on Wednesday. So they might have a win going into it, but you're right. And it's hard to prep for because now, if you have a new coach coming in, what's that going to look like? And this is a team that's going to be playing with a lot of urgency. And you play them back to back. So that's the other thing, right? They play Friday at 7:00 in Winnipeg. And then the home and home ends in Calgary on Sunday. That'll be a 5:00 start Central Time for that game. And all games are obviously available on CBC Gem, on CBC Sports YouTube, and CEBL Plus. But yeah, it'll be interesting because this could be a run for the Surge. If they were to string together 3 wins under a new coach, that kind of jolts them at least a little bit to get back into the playoff conversation. This is their worst start they've ever had. They've been in the Final Four every year since being in Calgary. So we're not used to seeing this. And they do still have guys like Ruggsy Miller-Moore and Evan Gilliard. So, the talent is there. You put a coach in there, and if they start figuring it out, they could be a dangerous team. We saw it with Edmonton last year. They went on a ridiculous run to get back into the playoff picture, nearly beat Calgary in Calgary to move on to the conference semifinal, but fell a little short. So you just can't count any team out in the CEBL. And I would definitely not count out Calgary and really the first adversity we've seen this team face from a wins-losses standpoint in its history. So interesting, because if the Sea Bears were to go 0-2 in that home and home, it would make things a little more urgent here as well in Winnipeg. So going to be interesting for sure. So Friday is the game here in Winnipeg, 7:00 at Canada Life Center, 5:00 start Central Time in Calgary. And you can catch those games CBC Gem, CBC Sports YouTube, and on CEBL Plus. That is it for us. On behalf of Taylor Allen, I'm Joey Slattery. We will see you next Wednesday when our episodes drop every Wednesday. Make sure that you're following us at Target Score Podcast on YouTube. Like and subscribe on Instagram at Target Score Pod. And you can follow me at Joey Slattery TV. Taylor Allen at Taylor Allen 31. Follow all of our shows here in Winnipeg, Brampton, and Vancouver. We will all be back next week. Taylor, enjoy these games this week, and we'll talk to you next week.
You bet, man. Take care, guys.